Top five.
So then I'll go back with another video. I'm Strange Wang. He is Nate. Today we're doing top 5 non-horror directors that made horror movies. Oh, let me get the title. Best horror films from non-horror directors. So we're thinking of people who don't make horror movies like Martin Scorsese, making movies about ghouls, stuff like that. But he's going to tell you how the top 5 works and about our social media.
It's true. If you scroll down to the description box below, pop it open, you'll find links to our social media accounts. So give us a follow on those. We'd appreciate it. We talk about things. We also have links to our coffee account and our Patreon account if you would like to help our channel grow in a financial manner. We would appreciate that very much as well. If you don't know how we do our top 5s, he's going to start with his 5 and 4. I'll give my 5 and 4, 3, 2, 3, 2. Then we trade off number 1s. We also have something called the Zemeckis rule, which just means if we both have the same movie on our list, but one person has it 2 spots or higher, we won't talk about it until we get to it on theirs.
My number 5 is going to be... So...
I've never heard of So. Tell me
how I did...
You're a buffoon!
How I did my list was how much I was scared by the movie.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, to me, my number 5 is American Werewolf in London, directed by John Landis.
Which is not scary at all.
That's why it's my number 5.
Yeah.
Because it counts.
Also, John Landis is an asshole. I learned that recently.
From who?
From watching the movies that made us on Netflix about coming to America.
I haven't watched that one yet.
Oh.
But he made this movie, and I'm like, it's kind of funny. Like, there is, like, obvious, like, horror elements in there, because it's about a werewolf in London. But not really scary, just an overall very good and entertaining movie. And you like the characters, there's investment. It's a little creepy, but it's not terrifying. Which is why it's my number 5. Also, on one of the Lil Wayne mixtapes back in the day, Gutta Gutta said, I direct thrillers, call me John Landis. And looking at his, like, movies, this is the only one I can think of that would fall in that category. It's not a thriller. So Gutta Gutta, if you're watching this, what the fuck are you talking about?
Wrong.
Grocery bag. You ever heard that song?
I probably have, but...
It's Bedrock, Young Money.
Oh, yeah.
And then he's just like, grocery bag. And next to my grocery bag is my number 4 pick, which is 28 Days Later, directed by Danny Boyle. Now, I watched this movie once, and I was like, once is good enough for me, because I'm a scared little bitch.
Pussy, 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 pussy.
And it's a zombie movie, and Danny Boyle was like, I'm going to kick in the door. I'm making my zombie movie, and here how it is. He went into the horror genre house and made his zombie movie and left his mark. Because after this, zombies became fast.
Yeah.
So just for that, it's just like, I got to respect you because this is not your genre and you're changing it, involving it, making it better.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not a horror director.
Yeah.
That there's impressive.
I feel that. My number 5, a lot of people argue this is not a horror movie. To be honest with you, I don't entirely disagree, but I think it counts enough to put it on my list. Mostly because I just needed something to round out my 5. So I went with Silence of the Lambs.
Okay. That's a thriller. I'll count it.
Yeah.
I thought he was going to a different movie. And I was going to be like, bitch.
Yeah. Well, now I hope that movie's on my list somewhere. But we'll find out, I guess.
It better be on your list. It better not be low. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, no. I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
No, it's on there, and it's high. Yeah, Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter, one of the most recognizable like movie villains in the world. In fact, so much so that people forget about the actual villain of the movie, which is Buffalo Bill, or at least like the current threat. And that is impressive from a guy who does not normally make horror movies. So, good job. Number 4, I went Alien.
That's my number 3.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Definitely a horror movie. Definitely outside like your typical horror movie because the bad guy is aliens and not ghost goblins or ghouls. Which saying ghouls actually fit in that time, so that was nice. But yeah, Ridley Scott, he's made a lot of really famous movies. He's made a lot of movies that have made a lot of money. And this time he just happened to make a horror movie. And I like it. It's good.
It's on my list as well because I don't want to say half the movie. Definitely the first act is more of like a mystery. We're all friends in a sitcom having conversations that don't really pertain to anything.
Yeah.
They're mad about how much they get paid, etc. We gotta go on another mission. We ain't getting paid anymore. Stuff like that, and then it just turns into Jaws in space.
Yeah. Jaws in space.
Because it's an exceptional movie, however, it is somewhat of a ripoff. I had to put it right there in the middle.
I think it's valid.
It's very valid.
Yeah.
My number 3 was Alien. My number 2 was Jaws.
That's my number 2.
Because mention, we're gonna have the same number 1.
We should have the same number
Yeah.
1.
That one's more a traditional horror movie.
Yeah.
So Jaws takes place during the summertime. It's outside, but it's terrifying. It made a generation of motherfuckers, including his mother,
That's
who
true.
sometimes is a fucker because he's here, not go swimming in the ocean
Yeah.
because of this movie.
Is this true?
Literally any water that she cannot see, like the bottom of, she will not get in because of Jaws.
Yeah. To have that impact on society as a whole is it's amazing. It's mind-blowing.
Mm-hmm.
When you think of Steven Spielberg, you don't think of horror movies.
Yeah.
Point being.
Yeah.
And you see this, and you're just like, I thought this was a fun day at the beach. Well, beach, you wrong. Because it's so tense and terrifying from the tension of what you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
And it changed the game for horror movies because what you can't see, that's the scariest thing ever. And your imagination just makes that worse. And then people took that and was like, we'll put it in our movies. Hence, Jaws. You also got it in The Babadook, as recent as The Babadook, and etc.
Yeah.
So, changed the game for horror movies. Not a horror director. Again,
Mm-hmm.
went in their house and put his flag and changed the game forever.
Yeah. Spielberg does like very much. He had a lot of involvement in Poltergeist,
Produced it.
and so like that's literally his only other like horror thing, right? I don't know how much to add other than what you said, but yeah, even though it was like a happy accident, that whole we're not gonna let you see this shit until like the climax added so much weight to it and tension, and even like. I watched Jaws for the first time like 3 or 4 years ago now, and a lot of times older stuff like that, like just because of like the way filmmaking has progressed and the kind like the way that I've grown up watching current movies, it can detract from that a little bit. And I didn't even really feel that too much with Jaws. Like even it being an older film, it didn't make the fact that like you can't see this thing that is like terrifying this town any less scary. So it stands the test of time on top of that, and is very deserving of being called a horror movie by like one of the, if not the best directors of all time, who never directed another horror movie, even though he really did basically direct Poltergeist. They just didn't put his name on it.
Because I was about to like throw out examples, like Jurassic Park. I can see where that's kind of scary.
Like maybe some elements,
And
but
then,
like
there's always elements of horror inside his movies, whether it's some
I guess you could
country leader ripping a heart out of somebody while it's still beating.
That's true. Temple of Doom is like the closest to horror. I don't know. I mean, when the face, like, it's always like the
melting.
the melting of the face, or the guy aging really quickly. I mean, you could argue that Schindler's List is a horror movie. It's just a different kind of horror, but like
The Post as a whole.
The Post, just horror. Wait, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep.
I just bought this movie on 4K, by the way.
Wow.
On Steelbook.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Okay, so my number 3. So surprised it's not on your list, and maybe it's just because you didn't consider it horror enough, which I think is fair because it's definitely way heavier on the comedy side. But Shaun of the Dead.
I didn't even think about that.
No.
Didn't cross my mind.
Yeah. It's a zombie movie, so I'm counting it as
It's
horror.
a zombie movie.
And
We both have zombie movies on our list, so
that's true. And I was digging through Edgar Wright's IMDb stuff.
Sorry to interrupt. This is why we're doing the list. Edgar Wright. He's directing Last Night in Soho. It's a horror movie. I forgot to say that in the beginning, so I'm shoving it in now.
Right. So he's had some involvement with some horror projects in the past. Like he before Shaun of the Dead, he had done like a horror short and like had some involvement in other things. But this was his first like feature-length film that, at the very least, is half a horror movie, right? So to take like, but he's passionate about. Like I've watched interviews with him before. He loves horror. He loves horror. So to get to see him like take a genre that he loves that he had never really directed before and find a way to fuse like what had made him stand out as a director with something he hadn't done before, really incredible. And it's a really funny movie. It's very good. So,
yeah, I would have, if I would have remembered that, I probably would have put that on my list. Because same thing as Spielberg, there's elements mixed into some of the movies. Like World's End, there's a couple of jump scares, but they're not scary. If you watch the ending for the cop one, what's the cop one?
Hot Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz. The ending is basically a ripoff of an old British horror movie, which it's an alright movie, but Hot Fuzz takes the concept and uses it way better. Because Egg Wright loves movies, so it makes more sense. But Last Night in Soho is a full-on horror film.
Who else could rip off an old English horror movie and Point Break at the same time?
Exactly. It's incredible stuff.
But yeah, and then my number 2 was Jaws as well. And then I'm assuming we have the same number.
Yeah, number 1 is Shining.
Yeah.
It's the most horror of the 2.
Yeah.
So I went with The Shining. Because it is scary, it's terrifying. There's all kinds of stuff. There's ghosts and ghouls. And just like the imagery, the faces that Jack Nicholson can contort his face in to invoke terror it leaves you speechless. See what I did there?
Clearly.
But yeah, I mean, you just look at all the like nothing in this movie really makes sense. There's TVs behind windows. There's no cord leading out anywhere. There's snowstorms out of nowhere, but people can still come and go. All types of weird, crazy stuff happens, and it's just this hotel is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like the hotel needs to be burned down. The hotel is the problem.
Yeah.
And I wanted to put it on this list, and I probably should have kicked off American Werewolf in London, but it's such an iconic like movie, and John Landis. And the director of Dr. Sleep, I don't know too much about him, but Dr. Sleep's fantastic as well. And it goes back to the Overlook Hotel. So, the Shining movies, man, they are something else. But this one in particular is a classic.
Yeah. I mean, like, it's Kubrick, so, like, it's going to be good, right? Unless you're Stephen King and you don't like it. But I think what makes it so scary to me is the way that it builds. So obviously being born well after this movie was released, had heard a lot about this movie. And,
You have?
Yes, I was born after this movie was
Very
released.
surprising.
Is that an old joke?
Yeah, boy.
I didn't watch it for the first time until like, again, maybe 3 or 4. Whenever we saw it in theaters.
Yeah, the movie theater, yeah. What an experience.
Yeah, great experience for sure. So I think what made it so scary to me was the build. Because like because of how long it had existed before I seen it, I knew that I was going into a scary movie per se, but it doesn't like it just goes through these levels, and then so by the time you get to the point with the twins and creepy naked bathtub lady and like the blood in the elevator, and then all of a sudden a bear sucking dick, which is just like so. It's like it's funny, but it's like it's still just like it keeps you so off balance. And then obviously when he like fully loses his shit and like the big chase scene and everything starts and they end up in the maze. And even when it just cuts to that last shot of him frozen, it's like still just scary. So to go from like things like A Clockwork Orange, which like has scary people in it, and like Space Odyssey, and then just like do something like this, like major directing chops, and it was terrifying, but also one of the best theater experiences I've ever had because it's an excellent fucking film. So it's number 1. It deserves to be.
A couple things I want to talk about with you is the first one, since this was the last thing you said, you went with A Clockwork Orange and
Space Odyssey.
2001: A Space Odyssey.
It was just the first 2 Kubrick movies that popped in my head.
Okay. Because if I was trying to get that point across and hit it hard, I would say Barry Lyndon. Maybe. that really drives the point home. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I think looking at my list, and I don't remember what your list is, but I know the two is movies don't build like Jaws, Alien, The Shining do now.
Yeah.
They just want to get in and get out.
Mm-hmm.
And these movies build. And I think this is why these are so impactful, because you look at something like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where Leatherface comes in halfway, maybe at the end of the first act, definitely the second act.
Mm-hmm.
The Jason movies, Freddy Krueger, etc. They go in and they just want to scare you for 2 hours. But these movies, they get you invested, and then they scare the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
Not because what we're seeing is so terrifying,
Mm-hmm.
but the people we love are in terrifying situations.
It's true. I mean, even like, so these guys mastered it, right? And again, we're talking about guys that don't direct horror movies, but it's something that even the good, like modern horror classics still implement, like Hereditary, Get Out, like they do that same thing, right? And
Midsummer.
it's clutch.
Clutch. What a word. Clutch. 21 Jump Street, ladies and gentlemen. Clutch. Tell us who your top 5 is. Scroll back up, hit the like button, share the video, and subscribe.
It's not a game, it's a